What you doing in there, Colton?
Just chilling.
Just chilling? Watching your tablet? Say hello to my little friend. So this guy is gonna get shipped to my Snap-on man. It's kind of dead. But Kylie was here, our Snap-on man, Austin Kylie, by the way, and he thought it'd be hilarious to throw this live baby mouse on my back while I was busy. And I just kept on walking, acting like nothing happened. Well, I didn't realize what he put on my back until I got in the office and this thing falls off me and starts running up my leg. So I kicked it and it died. Now I'm going to ship it to him via UPS. So he's gonna think he's gonna get a present from Firepunk Diesel, but it's gonna be a dead baby mouse. We'll make sure it's nice and upright so it's a presentable package, you know.
Hey, are we all set?
Okay, today we've got Eric Gentry's truck on the dyno. This is a 2006 truck that he is entering in the King of the Streets Challenge, and that is a competition coming up here in November in Ohio, where they have a drag race day, a dyno, a sled pull, a dirt drag, and they have to complete a 100-mile street drive. So it's kind of mixes, it's kind of like a ultimate call-out challenge, except it's a street version, and it should be a lot of fun. There are a lot of high horsepower trucks gunning for this, but there's also going to be 50 contestants, so you have to also be reliable and be able to make passes. So we're here to dial the thing in. This is a 6.7 engine that has Crillo rods, Crillo pistons, Gorilla girdle in the bottom end, ARP studs, ARP 625s, fire rings. It's got a 5.9 head with some mild port work and a Hellman side draft intake, Exergy 275% over injectors. It's got a 12 mil stroker pump over a stock pump on top, and a Firepunk Comp 2 transmission with a fat input shaft. But that's pretty much the basics. We just made the first baseline pull on it on 1400 microseconds, did a little over 1,000 horsepower. We're going to look at some data logs and see what kind of power we can make out of this thing today. Okay, we got Eric's truck all wrapped up today. This is in fact a 5.9 engine, not a 6.7 like I thought earlier in the day. But we ended the day with 1,243 horsepower on fuel only. We were kind of limited to the turbo, kept adding fuel, and that was about all it made with fuel only. And we turned 2 kits of nitrous on with a 50 jet and an 80 jet, and it did 1,593, so almost 1,600 horsepower with 2 kits of nitrous. So it is pretty rowdy if you turn the nitrous on, but he knows he's cheating his luck with a stock block or without sleeves in the motor. So he's basically going to only use the nitrous for dyno or a scramble button on the drag strip if he needs it at the King of the Street Challenge. But we got the dyno tuning all wrapped up. It had a lot of rail pressure surge. We ended up having to change the fuel control actuator FCA on the Duramax top pump. It had a Duramax FCA. We put a Cummins FCA on it, which calmed it down a lot, and I still needed to put another 4 or 5 tune revisions in it to kind of smooth it out. We were trying to find a balance between the truck starting good and it not surging at light load, but we got the thing all squared away. We're going to send him back to New York, and we'll see him in about 3 weeks at the King of the Street Challenge, and hopefully he can do well. Today we've got Alex Miesel's truck on the dyno. This is an early 04 truck. Originally we came here to diagnose a throttle position sensor issue. And it was due dead pedal and have no throttle response, and it had a map sensor code in it and a TPS sensor code. We ended up trying a new throttle position sensor, did not fix it. We did all the continuity checks. It had 5-volt supply, 5-volt signal, it had ground, everything checked out on the wiring. So we tried a different ECM and it still had a problem. So we went back to diagnosing the map sensor problem. It ended up not being a map sensor. It ended up being a intake air temp sensor. on the intake horn was shorting out inside, which was taking power out of the 5-volt circuit, which would give a 5-volt a map sensor 5-volt circuit high code. So it's kind of odd that the truck did not throw an intake air temp sensor code instead of a map sensor. But long story short, we worked on the thing for a day until we figured out that the throttle position issue that we were having was all related to the intake air temp sensor. We put a new intake air temp sensor on it. With the original ECM, everything works. So now we're on the dyno. We want to get the thing dialed in, see what kind of power it can make. I was not sure what size injectors there were in it, so I tuned it as if it was stock injectors, which was 3,000 microseconds, and it made 640 horsepower, but it pulled rail all the way down to 21,000 psi. So apparently it has injectors in it. I'm going to pull the pulse width down to 2,600 microseconds, which is generally about max effort with a stock CP3 and 100 horsepower injectors. And we will actually have a smaller tune, but with a smaller tune, it should be able to make more pulse width or more rail pressure, which will be a higher total fuel quantity, and hopefully we can make a little bit more horsepower if the turbo will support it. I believe it is a S363. We weren't able to talk to the customer this morning. I'm sure he'll call back soon and give me the details, but with being able to data log, I can kind of tell pretty quickly what's in the truck and what it's capable of. So I'm just kind of going through the data log and tuning it accordingly, and we'll get the thing dialed in. Okay, with a smaller tune, we made 638 horsepower as opposed to the 640. The difference was we didn't drain rail, so EGTs were lower, and it's more responsive, less smoke. So not always can you take a truck like this and just ask for the biggest tune possible. When it comes to custom tuning, it's about making the correct tune calibration for the parts that are on the truck. So we're going to pull this thing off at 638 horsepower. His limiting factor is his stock CP3, so if he wants to have more power and get more fuel quantity, we're going to have to go to a 10 mil stroker pump or a 12 mil stroker pump. But overall, it's a good running truck for the simple setup that's on it. So we'll get him off the dyno and send him home. Today we've got Alex Walton's 2004 on the dyno. This has a 06 front clip on it, but it is an 04 truck. That used to be a pulling truck, and it was kind of returned back into street form and function. There are some things that we're working through. He bought the truck about a month ago, and the coolant temp sensor, intake air temp sensor, it's got a host of codes. None of the dash works. I think it was just some of the wiring was pulled apart when it was a pulling truck. So it came in with a Smarty on it, and it only made 168 horsepower because it was in a D-rate mode. So for right now, he didn't want us to fix all of that stuff. He just wanted to see if we can get it to make power to where he could still actually drive the truck and not be a complete turd. So we put HP tuners on it, disabled some of those other limiters that was holding it back. It did 630 horsepower. But it was draining rail badly, and as I kept pulling fuel out, it still kept pulling rail. And after the fourth dyno pull, it hung an injector wide open, started knocking. And so this morning, Josh came in early, and he put a set of Exergy 100% over injectors in it, and we are going to dyno it in with the new 100% over injectors, and hopefully get the thing to run smooth and make rail pressure. This is an otherwise like a stock CP3. It has a 467 manual transmission, dual disc clutch, pretty simple setup, but hopefully we can make around 650 horsepower and get the thing running decently clean and get this guy to where he can have a drivable truck, because 160 horsepower is not fun to drive on the street. Okay, we got Alex's truck all wrapped up. The new injectors made a huge difference in how it ran. We did 761 horsepower, with the stock CP3. We were able to make command 2,000 microseconds, and it still made 24,000 rail, maxing the CP3 out. But a big injector with the pulse width cut back, and a good spray pattern, everything balanced. We went from 630 horsepower with the old injectors that are 125 horsepower. We don't know whose they were, but they were obviously had internal leaks. We're draining a lot of the CP3 pressure away and return fuel. That's why we couldn't maintain pressure. As soon as we put new, healthy, 100% over injectors in it, power came on, no problem. So it makes 50 pounds of boost. The truck makes 760 horsepower. It should be a whole new animal, considering that he could barely get the thing to 60 mile an hour when he showed up here with 168 horsepower. So I think he will be a happy customer. We're going to get him off the dyno and send him on the way.